Three speakers tonight, each of whom will speak for 30 minutes, and I'm going to be very strict with the clock. We have, first of all, Dr. Tom Lonsdale, who's going to talk about the pandemic of periodontal disease, a malodorous condition. And then we will have Dr. Veterinary from Melbourne to speak about matters dermatological, followed by Dr. Ralph Mueller, recently married to Sonia, from Melbourne, to speak about further dermatological subjects. So, Tom, by the way, I'm sorry about the refreshments. Our secretary, Marilyn Mackenzie, is away at the snow this week, and it was all left up to me. I bought everything, but I left it all in the practice, other than what I managed to pick up on the way. But Richard Naylor or Peter Prendergast, I'm reliably informed, are going to have some cups and things here shortly. So those of you the beer is in cans, so anybody who feels they'd like to get into that may do so. So without saying any more, except that there will be a brief business meeting afterwards. I promise you it'll be brief. There are no major things to talk about, just all the things that didn't happen because of the nature of our profession, let's say. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tom. Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you for turning up. Well, my talk is entitled Pandemic of Periodontal Disease, a Malodorous Condition. There's a pandemic out there. 80% plus of the pets that we see in our small animal clinics are affected by periodontal disease. Virtually any survey that's conducted anywhere in the Western world will produce that evidence. It's unusual in that it affects so many animals in the community. Very few disease states are so widespread. Maybe fleas, perhaps lice, some worms. But the major difference with this pandemic and others that have gone before, the rinderpest, pneumonias, the foot and mouth, the parvos, the difference with this one is that it's man-made. We brought it about, and we are the ones responsible for it. The subheading, a malodorous condition, sure is, it stinks. We know that, we all know that. Open any pussycat's mouth over the age of 2 and you can guarantee its mouth stinks. What smells even stronger is the fact that it's produced by vested interests who've made a point of selling the stuff that does not massage the gums of the animals to keep them healthy. And it's somewhat on the nose that we, the profession who are supposed to be guardians of the public interest and the interest of the animals, have not started to do something about it before now. Okay, well, this is a picture taken from the toothbrush advertisements. Right up, I hope you can see it. And I'll give you the visual image of something of what it looks like. And the top one there indicates the inflamed gum line, red swell, and you can read the rest. And on down through. Well, let's lay to rest one of the early myths straight away. The myth that this is a bacterial disease, period, full stop. Bacteria play a part in this whole complex for sure. But that's a bit of a hangover from the old days when we had the cause and effect. The unitary cause, the singular effect. The sort of teaching that followed on from Newton and has gone on to the present day. But now, increasingly, the new science doesn't talk about unitary causes, singular effects. It talks about that whole panoply of things that go on simultaneously. And therefore, you need non-linear equations to start to describe all these interdependent variables. Just to give you a couple of quotes that tend to mislead the whole thing. We got this one from Stephen Coles. We know it is a bacterial disease by virtue of studies carried out in germ-free rats and dogs. These animals without bacteria in their mouths do not develop plaque or periodontal disease, full stop. Jeff Brady from the ABDS says bacterial plaque is the primary cause of periodontal disease. They attach too much importance. The people who were researching parvovirus and its influence in notobiotic dogs took the notobiotic dogs, germ-free, added the parvovirus and stood back in expectation of the blood splattered diarrhea around the walls of the cage. It didn't happen. They were wise enough not to say, parvovirus does not cause parvovirus disease. They went on to very wisely, prudently say, parvovirus is one of the elements that brings about that state that we call parvovirus disease. So we basically got to change our thinking, our way of approaching these things when we've got a variety of causes happening on a very long time base. Hitherto, we haven't been particularly well equipped to do that. Okay, so that's the first part of that slide. But when we get down to the bottom there, well, this fellow, I guess he hasn't suffered in vain, because now he's up on the screen and he's doing something. In the first instance, selling toothbrushes over here. In the second instance, existing as an illustration for the point that I think needs to be made. He's been compromised throughout his entire life. That didn't happen yesterday. That happened probably over a period of about 10 years. Every day he woke up with the most throbbing, aching pain. Probably woke up in the night too. Wouldn't you with something like that? So he was compromised and the owner was compromised because the whole house was stunk of the stuff coming from this dog's mouth. And that dog has lived in so-called domestic bliss, domestic harmony with the rest of the family, and probably with people who took great pride in the level of care that they thought they were giving to their animals. Let me say that that same dog could not have existed in the wild for more than a couple of weeks. He would be in a very, very stressed condition. The only group, it would seem to me, who have not been compromised in producing a horrific case like that are the pet food manufacturers who, on average, have sold a can a day to the owners of that animal to feed that dog over the last 10 years, which represents 365 days, $365 a year, times 10. It's a substantial amount of money. And that's where the crux of so much of this comes down to. Okay, let's move on. So anyway, we'll talk about gingivitis quite a lot. That's the early stage of this disease, as manifested in the animals. It's an inflammation of the gingiva. There's all sorts of definitions, and the nomenclature does vary. And it also tends to be included in the overall statement of what constitutes periodontal disease. So let's include gingivitis as the early stage of periodontal disease for the sake of this argument. Okay. Down at the bottom there, severe periodontitis, and you're in real trouble. But up here, we've got the natural mouth in a healthy state, moving through grade 1, 2, and 3. Now, increasingly, in the newer science, you learn more from looking at the extremes, finding out what's happening at the interface when one system changes into another, when water changes into steam, ice into water, and so on. What happens in cloud formations and when the snowdrops fall down. And you can start to find all sorts of fascinating developments. So, this is where we should direct our interest here. What's the difference? What can we detect that's different? And it is difficult to detect, because this is the silent disease. So even when you go looking for it, it doesn't really necessarily herald itself and say, hey, look at me, I'm in a sick, sorry condition. So, and probably the main thing that characterises the difference is no odour in the healthy mouth, and the odour starts there and moves on through. So that's the early stage, and for those of you who spent some time filling in the questionnaires, you will have found that this starts at a very early stage indeed. If you started to open a few mouths of your 10-week-old vaccination cases as they come in, stick your nose in there. On the on the instructions on the back, it said at 2 centimetres distance or something like that, just to standardise it well. Of course, it didn't take into account the size of noses or the efficacy of those noses, the tractability of the patients or nothing. So we got a whole range of responses back. So the folks were producing grade 3, 4 and 5 periodontitises without any smell. So, I don't know. Anyway, it's worth going back to those cases and just checking them out. So, as part of the lead-up for this, most of you have seen this thing here from the dental health information of the University of Sydney. This is designed to alert you to what can be done for inflamed gums. Because inflamed gums are at the beginning of this whole thing. Now, it's worthwhile just saying that whilst we've implicated the demon plaque in inflamed gums, with our animals there's about 3 other fairly regular causes. One is foreign body lodgement, whether it be hair or spicules of bone or whatever. Another significant cause is just trauma from chewing on things, chewing on cages, chewing on each other, whatever. And the third most important one is simply the teething process. Because of the nature of the carnivore, needs its teeth in a hurry, they come hurtling through the gums in the space of 2 months, the second set between 4 and 6 months of age. And they do a lot of damage as they travel through, no doubt about it. And this is the time when they want to chew on the chair leg, the shoe, the whatever. This is the stage when the young puppy is chastised and told not to chew because that's the Chippendale or something. Okay, so gingivitis, that early stage. And what do the dental health people say about this? And this is our ray of hope when we're presenting with gingivitis, which is going to occur in animals. It is going to occur. It does on a daily basis. They injure a part of the gum, they chew on something a bit too hard for them. They have a scrap with the neighbour's cat, who knows? So gingivitis is going to be a fact of life for these animals. And the great thing is, it can be cured in about 4 to 5 days. And you can all read that. What counter to the normal medical advice, stir them up a bit. Good advice for yourselves, of course. It derives from the human work. But it works for our animals as well. And we prove it time and time again because they just flood through the door. Everyone's got a sore mouth, and hopefully most of them are still at the gingivitis stage. And we say, out you go, chew on the natural food, fix it up, come back in a fortnight to fix. And then, of course, the corollary of that is once gingivitis is gone, it will not return as long as one brushes or massages. And that's the best stage to catch it, of course, before it's ever occurred. If you start these animals at 3 to 4 weeks, chewing on their natural food, because given it that they've all got the potential to develop gingivitis, but you start them on that, massaging, nature's toothbrushing, dental flossing, whatever, then it doesn't occur at all. I'm happy for anybody to stop me if there's anything they just do want to address at any one moment. Press on. Okay. Well, I guess that I've summed that side up already in the talk. The crux of the whole issue is this: that gingivitis is curable. Grab it then. It's going to occur. A lot of animals are going to come in with gingivitis. And even those that you've had at an early stage and you advise the people about, they're still going to contract this from all manner of different reasons. Whatever you do, don't wait until periodontal disease is set well in and then get involved in prophylactic and so-called prophylactic exercises and think that you're doing this animal a favour. You have certainly not. Okay. Well, seeing as it can be so readily cured, why is there so much periodontal disease? running at 80+% and giving rise to all manner of pathology. Okay, well, it comes down to the fact that the carnivore mouth is balancing, juggling so many different requirements. It's got to carry this very tough hopper round with it, so it can't be too heavyweight. It's got to set the teeth, pretty hard teeth in gums that are going to necessarily be soft. You've got this potential permanently there. But happily, over the course of evolution, it's arranged to fix this by virtue of chewing on its food. So the natural food does the job of cleaning, massaging, stimulating, and keeping it all healthy. And that's the way it used to be. But the last 30 years, it all changed. And now, we give them the processed food. And we've denied them all that vital massage that they evolved to depend on. Well, so, sad, but we've got to talk about this stuff. And if we start with canned food, well, we know that does sweet bugger all. Just slides down and leaves a sludge, and on they go. Now, some of you might disagree with that, and I'm hoping for a couple of volunteers here tonight who do disagree with that statement and say that canned food is wonderful, to volunteer to consume canned food for 6 months. Just 6 months. It doesn't have to be doggy canned food or pussycat canned food. It could be human canned food. But for the experiment to run its course and to define a couple of the parameters here, they're not, those people, going to be allowed to brush their teeth. They can drink liquids, they can drink milk, they can drink Whisker's milk if they like. Canned food's got to be the soda's diet, but as one genuflection, in the interests of oral hygiene, they can have their friend or spouse or someone like it brush their teeth for them. What we'll do is get pretty erudite, learned human dentists, because none of us are competent to assess the state of the mouth on day one, and in 6 months' time reassess. And they're welcome to go for checkups, but no treatment in the interim.
Tom, I think I could probably get you half an fourth year veterinary student if you'd had so they'd really be in.
Well, see about it after. Yeah. Let's go. Good. Any other offers? Okay. Dry food. Well, we all know about dry food, and of course we see it on the bags, on the packets, and so on. They eulogize the stuff, and it aids in the production of teeth and gums and all that sort of rubbish. What utter trouble. What balderdash. Got some biscuits here. I prefer you tried the animal ones. Give it a go, because these are the ones that they're selling and saying they're wonderful and they massage teeth and gums and keep things in good order. But I suspect most of you prefer not. So any takers? Chew on a biscuit and tell us what it's like in half an hour. Whether that biscuit paste is still around the gum margin in the interdental spaces and doing a horrendous, frightful job. And the only way you resolve that, sadly we forgot to bring the other teeth brushes, but you can take one of these up there and brush it away later. Because you've got to use the synthetic toothbrush, the artificial one. They proclaim that the bloody stuff is chewed and that it massages, not rubbish. Try taking a biscuit and rubbing it round your gums, because that's where they need the massage, and just see how you like sandpapering your gums, and you'll reel back in shock and horror. No such. These animals, you'll see them gingerly just cracking them occasionally, throwing them back and swallowing them whole, but most commonly swallowing them whole. We've all done the emergency operation because the cat's been bowled over in the road, and you're just there doing some fixing procedure, and up it vomits all this dry stuff, and it's stuck there in the pharynx and in the esophagus, solid, and resembling the stuff that came out of the package just half an hour previously. Not in any way masticated. Your gastric torsions, likewise, would give you the same evidence. You feel through that gastric mucosa, and there they are, all those hard things. You know, you can almost tell which brand. Okay, what about table scraps and home-prepared meals? Well, the same applies. It's processed food. We cut stuff off the bone in the first instance. If it was meat, and the potatoes and the veggies and the rest will all be mashed up, and it's soft and gluggy, and down it slides. So they do nothing for this masticatory process that's so necessary. They provide nutrients, as do the things higher up. There's no denying that. Sure, it's foodstuffs. It contains the ingredients. Rawhide chews and pig's ears. That's the go in the States, apparently. Never entrepreneurial in their approach. And so now, genuinely, is just a squeal that's left in the pig that's not to be sold. Anyway, well, they're a joke. I mean, try it for yourself. Try chewing on a shoe and seeing to what extent your gums get a bit of a workout. Your grinding surfaces might, but that's the end of it. Oh, sure, your muscles, masticatory muscles, your tongue, your salivary glands might be stimulated, but the gums and the gingival sulcus, where these plaque-causing organisms are lurking, get no stimulation. What about natural foods? Well, of course, they're the things that will fix up our problem for us under most circumstances, and provided you start in good time. But here's the crunch. This is the difficulty. They won't if they're not given often enough. And they won't to animals that refuse to eat them. And they won't fix up problems where half the teeth have been lost and the opposing set don't have the scissor bite action. So even if you get them flipped over onto chewing raw meat off the bone on a daily basis. But please do bear in mind that anything less than once a day is inadequate. And there's a perfectly sound and scientific reason for this. That plaque calcifies within 24 to 48 hours. And this is the one to watch for. So anyone who says, yeah, I've fixed up my dog's teeth, I give him a bone once a week, or yeah, well, I do now and again when I go down the butcher's, well, they're not doing enough. In nature, it's every meal. Bar none, pretty much. But this raw meat is chewed off the bone, and therefore the cleaning, washing, polishing is done. But they'll survive on once a day, and that pretty much accords with what the human dentists say as well. Fix your periodontal disease potential problem by massaging your gums once a day. So if you insist on feeding anything from the top, make sure that the raw meaty bone is included there at least every 24 hours. And you'll go on from there pretty well. Okay, 3 other things on there. The early onset. Now this is really important, and nowhere have I seen in the literature, and I've been researching a bit just recently because it was incumbent that I know a little bit about what I was yapping about here tonight. So I had to check out what they were saying, and nowhere have I seen them refer to the early onset. They all talk about the fixed condition. You get the sagittal sections through the tooth in its sulcus, pretty much like the human dental one up here, and it's a static object. No clues given to the fact that this has a time frame to it, or that it starts at an early stage when these teeth are coming through the gums. And effectively, they're getting periodontitis before they've got a periodontium. The teeth cut into a frightful state of the mouth.
Just 5 more minutes.
Okay, better hurry. Early onset, lifelong pain, and the catastrophic consequences are starting to be well known. I've listed 2 or 3 there. You start to pick up the literature. The people who write this are all pretty tentative and talk about a theory and that they found this and they found the connections. Increasingly, it's beyond just a mere theory. The catastrophic consequences of periodontal disease are starting to become well known. The cardiac, hepatitis, nephritis, arthritis, and on and on and on. The immune system that's totally tied up with looking after a diseased mouth forgets to check out the tumour cells that are happening in other parts of the body, and so you've got the cancer and all the rest, that whole range of diseases that you see in your animals, because somewhere in the mouth that's septic focus. Clinical experience is in the notes. We practice on the fringe, and lots of clients come out of the inner city. And they come with their animals, and they're not in any way unhappy with the previous veterinary advice they've received, and yet their animals' mouths are just full of the most vile, bloody, pussy unpleasantness. The 3 cases that are in the notes there, well, look, The plasma cell photodermatitis is the one that interests me most of all in a sense. The textbooks say that it's not mendable, or if it does, it just spontaneously regresses. We produced 2 cases that responded to dental overhaul and raw meat on the bone, and the feet fixed. So, that is fairly stark, as far as I know, and according to the textbooks that I've read, it's not been documented elsewhere, so that's a world first. That's of interest because if the challenge is really great and the experimental model passes the test, then that's almost better than having a million instances of something that you would expect to arise. Raw meaty bones that promote health, well, that's a couple of dogs that came to us for vaccination, standard vaccination. The only didn't think there was anything the matter with them, except they've been to see us 2 or 3 times every year for the past 5 or 6 years. And we never seemed to be able to put a finger on what was going wrong with these animals. We said, OK, bring them in, please, let's do something about their mouths. We did, we blood tested them. The white cell counts were 5.1 and 5.3. We took out their teeth. We insisted on raw meaty bones, took a bit of time, we had to stick at it. And in a year's time, they're 8.3 and 8.5 white cell counts. All those strange conditions that they'd previously been presenting, gone miraculously. The owner's since written to one of the dog food companies to say, hey, don't like this. We paid money for your product, and this is what happened. The interest groups, pet food industry, based on a fallacy. It's in the notes. Have a read of it. And I'll lend you the textbook which tells you about the structure of a logical argument and how you derive true conclusions from true premises, but that you can't from false premises. If people set off with a lie, they're going to finish up with a lie. And let me say, this is a horrendous lie. Anyone who's researched and refined anything down to that and then doesn't introduce a rider, watch out, take care, buyer beware, is crazy. Dogs require specific nutrients and not specific feedstuffs. They so limit themselves and leave themselves wide open for all manner of catastrophes, and we see that. How you finish up getting that to that point? Well, there you go. That's how the argument goes. And the best worked example of that is the babies require specific nutrients containing this substitute formula. It's the same wording about the same situation. The baby milk industry is seeking to do the same thing. Holus bolus diet for the first 6-9 months of the child's life. We've researched this, we've got the specific nutrients, we know what they are, we can name them, and we can quantify them. And they're in the can. Therefore, you don't need the specific breast milk in order to have good health for your baby. Here's the specific breast milk, therefore we have good health. Whoops, test that out in the marketplace and it's not the case. Widespread disease, disruption of communities, where previously in the third world, where this particular whole thing arose, big disasters. Ultimately, WHO and UNICEF had to act on this, and you can put a marker somewhere. Down there. Just substitute vet for doctor, or dog food for breast milk and so on, and you will be able to read into it the comparable situation for ourselves. Okay? And that's how they resolve the issue. And it's in the notes, and you'll see that, in fact, that's what we require to do now to fix up the horrendous situation that earlier I alluded to that we were responsible for. Okay, what about the veterinary dentists? What have they done to help this whole situation? Have they focused in the right direction? Not so. They've called major interferences in the animal's mouth a prophylactic procedure. Corrupted the language, and there's a few quotes. Well, hopefully they'll come to realise that they'll get back on course and fix this problem.
Tom will have to ask for some concluding remarks here.
Okay, thank you. Rick? In which case, I'll just flash up the legal position as told to me by my solicitor. He knows his stuff. When I ran this past him, Well, he needs to, doesn't he? He's nice. And
he wasn't going to financial position as well as your legal position.
And in passing, I said, as I was running the text past him and saying, you know, what else? Any words of advice? He said, yeah, get into it. He is equally distraught by what's been going on. What to do? Well, Dr. Heal Thyself. As I said in that first Control and Therapy article a long time ago, we've got to fix up ourselves. We've got to change our perception of what's going on. And quoting from JFK, that's good, isn't it? If you're not part of the answer, you're part of the problem. And I feel that's the way we've been. Okay, all these folks have got something to answer for, and they've all got to change their game. And it's in the notes. And what can we expect? Well, providing it goes through, according to our experience in our little practice out in Western Sydney, things will be simply bloody marvellous. The health picture will change, not overnight, take time. We might have to sacrifice the current generation, but the new generations coming through, they're just going to have such a different health expectancy. In terms of economy, our client's going to spend a fraction on the food. The natural stuff costs a fraction of this other stuff here. And the environment is going to benefit hugely. No unnecessary canning, no unnecessary transportation, and all that stuff that really belongs as fertiliser or as stock feed will be utilised for that purpose. Return to the soil, and hopefully we'll be able to bequeath a reasonable terra firma to our offspring down the ages. Okay, how are we going to be judged? Well, it may be that history will judge that some greedy vested interests gulled an entire generation. On the other hand, they might say, look, it was just an oversight, the innocent oversight that was snuck in there, and just like we said in the logical argument, that replicates. So if you've got a lie in the premises, and it'll come through in the conclusion, and maybe it's nobody's fault, and therefore we won't hold anybody accountable. And otherwise, they might say, oh, look, you folks, you with your modern 20th century civilization, you want to have convenience, you've got the convenience out of the can, and you're just going to have to pay with disease and suffering and trips to the vet for prophylactic what's it. Or maybe something entirely different. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting standing back and watching to see. Thank you for your time.
Sonia and Ralph have just arrived, so we're just going to take a little break. But before I do, I'd like to thank you, Tom. You've obviously put a tremendous amount of work into this, and I think it's really important that we as an MPB have a forum where if any of you have any ideas that you think are important enough to share, that this is a place that you can do it. Tom, I'm sure that you've opened everybody's eyes a little bit about your point of view, and certainly I think we're going to send everybody home with food for thought. But really, a lot of work has gone, not meant to be a pun. Lots of work has gone into this, and I hope everybody appreciates the effort, particularly for a busy practicing veterinarian. Now, Sonia and Ralph have arrived. I think we might just give them a few minutes to know. You want to go straight ahead? You're ready to talk? Okay, well, while I chatter on, if you want to pop the carousel on, it should all be working.
Barbara wants to say something. Can we allow Barbara a moment?
Thanks very much. Well, I'd like to say, Tom, that I admire you for your bravery in sharing your opinion. In case people that don't know me, I'm Barbara Fuji. I'm a veterinarian for Uncle Ben's. So I find Stephen's talk very interesting, and I'd like to say that it's important that views are shared, and I'd like to say that I think part of what you're saying is very important, especially the part about bones. There has been incredible research done on the value of bones and the effect they have on periodontal disease. But Tom, I'd have to question some of your research, and I'd like to know where you got some of your facts, because I myself have been doing a lot of literature research as well. And I find that your figures of 80% prevalence of periodontal disease, is that based on the survey that you've just done? And if so, how many of the surveys did you have returned? And is that significant? Secondly, you're talking about the importance of cause and effect, and saying that bacteria play no place in periodontal disease. And yet, in some of the work that I've looked at, certainly treatment with chlorhexidine, tetracycline and metonazole have been very effective in curing gingivitis and periodontal disease. And there are also other etiologies involved in periodontal disease which we're aware of: overcrowding, malocclusions, and certainly periodontal disease has been around for a very long time, as long ago as 2,000 years, when the Egyptians kept cats in a domestic situation to guard their granaries. Skulls have been examined, and periodontal disease has been discovered to be evident even as long ago as 2,000 years. And it's not a new thing. It's been around for a very long time. I think it's important to remember that the prepared foods that you see today are complete and balanced. They don't have bones in them. Some people are alarmed when they do find bones in them. I think the major benefit of Tom's talk today is to raise the issue of bones, and I think that, as I said, more research needs to go into that, and I think there's a lot more to learn on this, but I just question some of your facts and figures, Tom. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for that, folks. Look, Barbara wants to question the facts and figures. They're contained all over the place. Those who attended the meeting the other day, there they are, 80% wherever you look. In terms of not saying bacteremic, I didn't say that. I said that is not the solus cause. This is not a unitary cause giving rise to a single entity, but it's part of the interdependent variables, and that we should widen our understanding. The old model that we inherited from Newton is not serving us well, and we've got to rely on the newer science to help us get through this phase, which we're all labouring with. In terms of its existence in the pharaonic tombs, well, that's for sure, because what's going to happen to the pharaonic cat? It's going to sit on the velvet cushion, and it's going to be fed the tidbits, as I was saying earlier, the processed foods from the table. But not to worry, it's in the notes, you can read about it. It also tells you in the notes why complete and balanced is a furphy. It's not the case. In order for it to be complete and balanced, it must also do those other things, which include being palatable and also doing all those other things that you require of diet in the case of the target species, which are carnivores. But that's in brief. It's a big subject. I urge the university people here, and I'm gratified to see quite a number, they get into this now, do some research, produce the figures, and edify us all. Thanks.
Excuse me, Tom, how can you ensure an adequate calcium-phosphorus ratio in those large breeds of dogs, which often develop skeletal abnormalities, and it's well recognised that these dogs do benefit from an adequate calcium-phosphorus ratio, and I'm sure they wouldn't have survived in the wild on a natural diet. I mean, partly because of their problems, but I mean, we can't penalise all those people who choose to have those type of dogs by making it essential that they have only a natural diet.
Oh, I'm not suggesting you throw the baby with the bathwater, not a bit. If you look at the diet included on the back there, we utilised that.
But how do you get a calcium-phosphorus ratio without getting all the foods analysed?
Well, this is the thing. Once you start to analyse stuff, then you have to come up with all the figures, and then you don't know what you're left without. And this is what's happened with the NRC findings, that they've produced all these figures that look wonderful on paper, but have left out this major component, so that we've now got a pandemic of 80+%. Right? So forget your figures. Just do what nature intended you to do.
But these dogs aren't natural. They would die. They're mutants.
Well, okay, so much for that. Give it a go, and you'll find that the bone is the most perfectly balanced source of calcium phosphorus that you could ever want for. They don't grow too fast, and so you get the overnutrition problems and all of that. But sure, we may have to modify the natural approach, if you like, in certain instances. But that's not beyond the wit of man.
Okay, I'm going to exercise presidential veto here. Tom will be available at the break and at the end for anybody who wants to chat to him, and I've found him most approachable, particularly when we disagree on things. So, it's true.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So certainly, please. But in deference to our guest speakers from Melbourne, I think we have to proceed. And